You know what I'm not sorry for? EnchantWorldle. To start things off. I'm not sorry for this to start things off. That's not how you spell anything. Nyxweaver. It is a common. Ooh, but it's... Oh. Rush of Knowledge. Okay, so it is a 5-mana common sorcery. Oh, this might be really difficult.
One. Gives me conniptions.
Corpse Hatch? No, wait, that's black. A 5-mana red or white sorcery?
Another one. Gives me conniptions.
What's the... There's one that, like, blows up a land and then... Structural something? Is it structural collapse? Nope, other one.
Another one.
But it's from Gatecrash?
Conniptions.
Oh, fuck. I know the one. It exiles a thing. There's like a cage that's getting carried up into the air by angels.
Another one.
Something Judgment?
Gives me conniptions.
Is it Harsh Judgment? Nope. Summary Judgment?
One.
Nope.
Gives me conniptions.
Fuck, I know this card. It's, oh. Sorry, my Discord blew up. Okay, thank you, Olivia. It's the, it exiles a thing. I don't know, exile? No. I don't think it's exile into darkness. Harsh Justice? Oh, that's the this one. The guy's going like this. Oh, fuck. Is it not? How could it not be Judgment? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know.
Eggs, E-double-G-S eggs.
That's what I want to know. Like it's four and a white, and you exile target artifact or creature. No, creature or enchantment. Exile creature or enchantment. Something like that. Something like that. It's like... I'm pretty sure it's an Orzhov card. Like Orzhov themed. Maybe not? What they call Harsh? It's not Harsh. It's not Justice. I don't think it's Justice here. No. This card wasn't very good in Gatecrash, but occasionally you would play it. There's angels on it. Angels, Judgment, angels. No, these are all just angels. Angel's Mercy? No, that's gaining a bunch of life. Computer, stop! Oh, it's Angelic Edict. Yep. Woo! Alright, hold on. I gotta grab my thing.
Abusing magic.
Yeah. How dare you?
No.
Oh. Apologies. I had to get food. One of the things I don't like about streaming as soon as I wake up. Well, not as soon, but. Holy smokes. Kyle's gifted 5 subs to the community. Those went to Big Kev, Mewy Twooey, Magnetron Man, and Fleeting TV, and Mo Mansion. Thank you so much, Kyle's. That's incredibly generous of you. Lee Rozelle for the 35th month. Welcome back. How you doing? How you been? Thank you so much for the support. And Zom SGM, new subscriber. Thank you for supporting the channel and joining us. I mean, it's 10:20 now. I got up at like 9:15, but I could have used more sleep, honestly. I got up. I mean, my sleep is actually okay, but it's just I take time to get going, you know? Take a little time to get going. Not much, but... anyways, yes. They're carrying them up to gay baby jail. Okay, bye Twitch chat. Hello, Spellify. Beg your fucking pardon? A single word, 1 mana white instant. Ephemerate. Right? Exile target creature you control. Okay. Easy. Easy money. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Eggs! Eggs! EGGS eggs!
Dredge? No. It's an activated ability. It's a creature. Artifact creature.
Well, Ben Wheeler, abusing magic.
Yeah. How dare you?
No.
I think it's an artifact creature. No, it's not an artifact creature. Artifact equipment. 3. Four into 3. Equip creature gets +X/+X. Equip cost blank. Artifact equip. 4 into 3. And this could be anything. It's not Kite Shield. 4 into 3. Four into 3. I can't stop thinking about Kite Shield. Kite Shield. Something net. Not Spider Silk net. Something net. Bone Saw. Bone Saw. Bone Saw? I can't think of anything else. At Highlander last night, buddy of mine played out a Shuko for free. And I was like, that costs 1 mana. And he was like, oh, right, shit. I had Bone Saw in mind. So thanks, Mike, for mentioning Bone Saw and thinking you had Bone Saw. Thinking your Nadu deck comboed with Bone Saw. Okay. Great. Now we can get on to the juice. I mean, before I do that, I gotta say thank you to Seven Hearth for the 30th month. Ayo, that's like 3 Berks dozen and a bit. I know you mean bakers, but Berks... Is Berks the word for bakers in some other language? Is this just a typo? Gotta look it up. Looking into this. Berks. Alright, great. Just typo? Love it. Thank you so much. Vega Destroyer, new subscriber to the channel. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Glad to have you. Good to see you. And Mini Northeast for the 4th month. Yippee! Coca-Cola und Fortnite. 4 months. Thank you so much for the support. Glad to have you. And how are you doing? Good to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. Is Ratiu a villain now? Oh, actually, you know what? Appropriately, we should be doing this. Oh, I think I'm doing it like this. Is that the right rat? I need to start labeling these things other than just rat. There we go. This is the Duskmourn rat made by Silent Soul. He's got like little 3D glasses. Little Duskmourn rat view. Hello, Wheeler. I wanted to say I've been playing Canlander with people at the Magic Club at Uni Campus, and it's very fun. Glad of it, Mason Potato. Canlander is fun. Both Serge and I went out to Monday night last night, and we both made it to the round 4 undefeated, and then fought other people, and then lost to those people. It was pretty cool. Wish people around you played Canlander. Where are you? There is a Discord where you can maybe find people around you. That should links to the website, which links to the Discord. But you know, there's probably people around you. Michigan? No, I mean you can play with people in Michigan. I believe they exist. Okay, let me chew this, and then let me talk whatever this set is. Do you think we have, like, scary background music that we could play? Royalty-free scary music. No copyright. I just want, like, what is it? Dark ambience? Horror ambience for 3 hours. Nope, I'm not doing that. Great. Bong Wizard. Welcome back for the 34th month. How you doing? How you been? Glad to have you. Good to see you. Doubles in this economy? Wait till you get trips. Some sick trips? Okay. Let's just do this here. I don't want this to get muted because people like watching the set reviews. And we should get into this because I have not a huge amount of time today, unfortunately. I have to go and record some North 100, as well as I have a doctor's appointment that is pretty important. So, this is Duskmourn. It's the new set coming out. Today, I'm going to talk about cards from Duskmourn. I'm not necessarily going to talk about all of the aesthetics or how I feel about the sets or any big picture ideas. I'm going to save that for the end, especially because I think it's important that everybody else get a full picture, right? That everybody else sees the entirety of the set. I've already seen the set. And I have thoughts, but I also have an NDA to keep. And so I'm just going to be talking about the cards. I'm going to be talking about the cards that are officially previewed as well. Not talking about any leaks. And I'm basically just going to go through what the card image gallery has. I'm going to be talking about not only the cards in the main set, but also the special guests and some of the new commander cards. Not really talking about reprints unless they're reprints that are added for Gladiator, right? On that note, I'm going to be talking about the cards through the lens of Gladiator, Canadian Highlander, occasionally Cube if it pops up, and just vibes. Maybe less vibes today because there's going to be a bunch of vibes discussions on Thursday, later in the week there, once we have the full set out. I do have a couple of rules. Oh, perfect. Good time. Good time to start. Hamhawks, thank you for the raid. Welcome, everybody. I hope you had a good stream. We have just started. We're just getting into it. So you haven't missed anything. We're about to kick off a set review. Branding points back for the 33rd month. I could strangle whoever decided to not landscape align the rooms on the gallery. Well, that's a great note to kick things off, because I, too, am not a fan about the fact that you can't rotate or something. So, for ease of viewing, I have done this. Because the first card that we are talking about is a room. So let's kick things off. Again, I guess before I do this, that was a good segue, but I also skipped over the fact that I have a couple of rules in here. One, I think we actually have the command for this. I'm going to be going Wooburg for this. This includes a special guest. So I'll do all the white cards in the main set, then I'll hop on over the special guest page and talk about the white cards there, etc. No lab mansplaining, which if there's like a very niche kind of point that I skip over or something that is just like unnecessary or there's a reason why I'm not talking about it, don't just like drill on that point over and over again, you know, because it just probably doesn't matter and we're trying to keep it brief. Then, of course, $5 to skip, $5 to go back to a card. With that, let's kick things off with the first card here. This is a room, new mechanic as well. I'm going to be explaining some of the new mechanics as they come along the way. So this is Dollmaker's Shop and Porcelain Gallery. It is an enchantment room. So the way that rooms work are they're kind of just like split cards. I guess more accurately, they're like fuse cards from Dragon's Maze, except you get the second half at a different time and they're permanents. So you may cast either half of this card and that door unlocks on the battlefield. And as a sorcery, you may pay the mana cost of a locked door to unlock it. So for instance, Dollmaker's Shop is 1 and a white that says whenever one or more non-toy creatures you control attack a player, you create a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token.
Abusing magic.
So If I pay the 1 and a white for Dollmaker's Shop, and this hits the table, then I have this side active. I do not have Porcelain Gallery active until I pay its mana cost and unlock it. Once I have done that, then I have an enchantment that has both of these abilities. So whenever one or more non-toy creatures you control attack a player, you make a 1/1 toy soldier, and creatures you control have base power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control. You could also cast Porcelain Gallery. You could just pay 6 mana and get this side and have the Dollmaker's Shop locked. But for a lot of the rooms, I think that we are probably better off approaching them as you are playing this card, and then late game you have access to this card, right? So we have Dollmaker's Shop here, and then Porcelain Gallery. How does destruction work targeting these? Well, it's a singular permanent. I'm gonna level with you. I don't know all of the rules of these by heart. Opening room on battlefield, cast or something else. So when you cast this side, then this side is considered unlocked. And then you can unlock this when it's on the battlefield by paying this cost as a sorcery. There are like locked room tokens as well to show that, like it, you know. Yeah, there are going to be some counters for that. Don't worry. There will be a way to track stuff. And yes, there's a status called Fully Unlocked, which will pop up on a couple of cards. Mind you, not a lot of the cards that we're talking about for the sake of competitive evaluation are going to feature that line of text. McMeno for the 3rd month. Welcome back. Upcoming Gladiator Rite of Champions hype? Yes. Hell yes. Yes and yes. Thank you for the support. Glad to have you. May I say, good to see you. Okay, so this card, I like it. This side, 2 mana enchantment. Whenever a non-toy creature attacks a player, you make a 1/1 token. I like cards that can continuously provide advantage. The fact that it doesn't, while it says non-toy, it does not say non-token. So if we are playing, say, a token strategy or even like an artifact strategy, because this makes repeatable artifact tokens, 2 mana for this is pretty nice, right? Then on that note, we also have the flip side, the Porcelain Gallery here. And the Porcelain Gallery is interesting because 6 mana is a lot of mana, but it's a nice kicker late game, especially for the 2 decks that I'm talking about, like a tokens deck, especially if you're like green-white tokens or Naya tokens, Abzan, whatever. You will have mana acceleration, right? So you can get to 6. If you're an artifact deck that cares about artifact synergies, chances are you have treasure generation or just mana rocks or some way of getting up to 6 mana. Or games just go long enough that you can get up to 6 mana. This card, I think I like it for Gladiator. I think that it is a bit narrow where it shows up. Like, I'm not planning on playing this in like a mono white aggro deck or a Death and Taxes list, but definitely if I'm a tokens deck or a deck that cares about repeatable artifact generation, I'll consider this. Okay, that's the first door. And then we have other cards that are not doors that I want to talk about. This card's kind of fun. I don't want to go too much into it, but Emerge from the Cocoon. 4 and a white for a sorcery. Reanimate target creature. You gain 3 life. Having just actual factual reanimation at common in white is dope. Bringing it back. You know, Resurrection. This is some alpha shit. It's just really cool that it's a reanimation spell that, honestly, gaining 3 life on your reanimate target is kind of nice. Like, I'm not the most excited to play this card out of all the other reanimate cards available, but it's not that bad. Like, getting 3 life does give you some cushioning. I just mostly want to talk about it because It's just a straight up white reanimate, not limited by the size of the creature that you're targeting or when it went to the graveyard. And it's at common. It's pretty wild to me. Enduring Innocence. 1 white for a 2/1 enchantment creature, Sheep Glimmer. Glimmer is a new creature type. It might pop up a couple of times. It has lifelink, and whenever one or more other creatures you control with power 2 or less enter, you draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. When Enduring Innocence dies, if it was a creature, you return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. It's an enchantment, and it is no longer a creature. This card is great. This is a part of a cycle, although I think this might be the best one, or at least a version of it. It's the one in the cycle where the analogs to it, right? Like a lot of these cards have a design where they are looking to emulate other, enchantments that have existed throughout the history of the game. For instance, the blue one. Oh, wait, hold on. Is the blue one previewed? I think the blue one is previewed. Wait. How do I switch to the... Okay, the blue one is previewed. For instance, the blue one is a coastal piracy that turns into a coastal piracy, right? Great. This one, however, happens to only be 3 mana. That is a welcoming vampire that turns into, I guess, a welcoming vampire, like a Takesha's Welcome, right? The enchantment version of it. I guess what I'm saying is that some of the other versions that we have seen, they are cards that are powerful, but you typically don't play the enchantment only version of them because, well, they don't really impact the board outside of, whatever effect that they bring, but it's not super exciting. And you don't usually play the creature version of them because they are vulnerable. They're it's an expensive effect, and so it's a lot of mana to play a creature that just does that ability without a huge amount of payoff, right? Like for a curiosity, you can get it with like Edric or whatever, but that's a bit of a different, odd commander-ish scenario. Enduring Innocence, people play both the enchantment only and the creature only version of this card, and this version gives you double duty on that, being able to draw you some extra cards, and then it dies, and you just don't care. It's just an enchantment that'll keep doing it. Lifelink is nice because often these decks care about life gain. The 2/1 body is atrocious, but that's whatever, right? Obviously, Welcoming Vampire is so good because it's honestly just kind of just a clock. Like being able to smack in the air for 2 and then 3 toughness, not the end of the world. Not the biggest thing in the world, but enough that it can be a little tricky to get off the board. And so while I don't necessarily want to compare this directly to the other versions of this card you are playing, because I imagine you're just playing this alongside them. I'm excited to play this card in Ruin Your Evening or the mono white annoying mid-range kind of deck. A bunch of stuff like that. If this gets swords, you're pretty unhappy. Yeah, but that's the case with basically any 3-drop without an ETB, right? You're a synergy deck. This card shows up in synergy lists where your individual pieces aren't going to be that exciting, but when you get your engine going, then it is really difficult for your opponent to make any meaningful progress. So I like this card. I think it is going to show up. I mean, more so Gladiator than Canlander, but I get you could play. I bet you could play this in Canlander Ruin Your Evening, despite it being pretty vulnerable. Losing this to a Ren and 6 is terrible. Ethereal Armor gets a reprint. We already have it, but cool reprint nonetheless. Don't want to talk about this card because it's not particularly good. Not particularly good. Don't want want to talk about that card. This the set is a bit lower on power level in certain places, and I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with that. There's a new set of ley lines. Ley lines are always pretty bad in 100 card singleton unless you have like combo applications with them. But yeah, it's we're not great. It's not great. Don't do it. Don't do it. Optimistic Scavenger. 1 white for a 1/1 human scout that has Eerie. Eerie is a keyword ability that effectively is just Constellation with set mechanic. So whenever an enchantment you control enters, and whenever you fully unlock a room, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. I like this card because it's very similar to Generous Visitor from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. The 1 green 1/1 that says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Enchantments entering and casting, like you get the back and forth of like, well, if I cast it, doesn't matter if they counter it, I still get the counter. Whereas the entering is like, well, if I return to from the graveyard to play, or if I flicker it, or if it gets tutored as a part of another ability, then I get, it. Like there's kind of this push and pull, but at the end of the day, if you're playing one of them, you're probably playing both of them. We have seen a couple of decks bestow Beatdown or Sanctum Stompy, whatever you want to call it, pop up. And it's nice that there is a redundancy in your 1-drops, right? That's what these decks really lack, is redundancy in their engine pieces, especially in the cheaper versions. And so getting another copy of that is pretty nice. Oh, I closed the wrong window. The Wheeler Classic. I am doing everything I can to not talk about some of these cards. Overlord of the Mistmoors. 5/2 white for a 6/6 enchantment creature, Avatar Horror, with Impending 4. Impending is a new ability here. If you cast this spell for its impending cost, it enters with 4 time counters and isn't a creature until the last is removed. At the beginning of your end step, remove a time counter from it. And says, whenever Overlord of the Mistmoors enters or attacks, you create 2 2/1 white insect creature tokens with flying. So you pay 4 mana up front. You get an enchantment with 4 counters on it. And then you make 2 2/1 bugs. Then on your end step, you remove the counter. So after you have removed all these counters, then it becomes a 6/6 that has this ability. I am having a bit of a tough time evaluating some of these. This one, I like it a bit more. Pun not intended. Mostly because it makes 2. It can make 2 bodies, which is pretty good. Right? Like, that's pretty cracked. Making 2 bodies, even if it's 4 mana. Hold on, let me see if I can find. You ever think about how Atraxa Grand Unifier is 7 mana? Okay, so this card has some strengths. The like impending keyword also had, or not keyword, I guess it's like what's it called? An alternative cost. Like, there is some play to putting a very high mana valued permanent into play for a low-ish cost that is like pretty difficult to interact with, as well as being able to cast Wraths through this card. That's pretty nice. Being able to flicker this card through things like Felia, or I guess Charming Prince can't do it. Well, Felia. There's another one too, right? There's like a one that can flicker enchantments that I'm missing, or like more than just enchantments, but enchantments are under that, in that category. To make this pretty strong. I imagine this card will see play in some of those bigger white decks or the really annoying white mid-range decks. I don't think this card is good enough for Canadian Highlander, but for Gladiator, this feels the right speed. Even though this as a body just doesn't have any kind of evasion or keywords, making 2/1 flyers, multiple 2/1 flyers on ETB and attacks can be pretty scary. That's a quicker clock than you'd think. Mook GB, welcome to the stream. Thank you for subscribing and supporting the channel. I hope you're doing well. Ooh. Reluctant Role Model. 1 in a white for a 2/2 human survivor that has survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Reluctant Role Model is tapped, you put a flying, lifelink, or +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever Reluctant Role Model or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to 1 target creature. I think this card's pretty good. This has a pretty easy mana cost to fulfill. It's a human. You just have to attack or have it crew a vehicle, which is pretty easy to do, especially in a white X kind of aggressive deck. As soon as you attack with this, you can just put a flying counter on it. Like if you have to make either a riskier attack or you get like 1 free attack in before your opponent builds to the board, I would then immediately put a flying counter on it. Because then it just lets it continuously attack more and more with some level of protection. Obviously, if it dies after getting the flying counter on it, you can then pass it on to another creature to then let that card just attack over your opponent's blockers. And this is all evaluating this card in a deck that does have +1/+1 counters on it. Like if I'm talking about mono white or white X humans decks, you'll have your Luminarch Aspirant and your Siege Veteran and whatnot. But if we're talking about playing this in like a counters deck, like a dedicated counters deck as well, the fact that it just triggers for your other creatures is pretty great. Basically just giving all your creatures modular of sorts for any of their counters. So I imagine this card will see quite a bit of play, certainly in the counter strategies, but also likely to show up in some of the human strategies. Like this last block of text, it kind of hits you with a jump scare. Like you're like, oh, I get it. If I attack, it does a thing, and that's pretty cool, and it can get bigger, and yada, yada, yada. And then you're like, oh, or another creature you control? Oh, this actually does things. Like this does more than just show up and be a dork. Yeah. Pretty good card. Pretty good card. Ba-da-ba-ba. All right. I don't think this card is necessarily playable, but I do love this ability. Savior of the Small. 3 in a white for a 3/4 core survivor with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Savior of the Small is tapped, you return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. I am going to play the crap out of this card in Commander because it does exactly what I want. Just really annoying white recursion. Pretty cool. Shard Mage's Rescue. 1 white for an enchantment aura that has flash. Enchant creature you control. As long as Shard Mage's Rescue entered this turn, enchanted creature has hexproof, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1. So this is actually kind of neat. One of the things that the Bestow Beatdown or the like Ethereal Armor Bogles kind of decks suffer from in Singleton is that you don't have 4 copies of Slippery Bogle, you don't have 4 copies of Gladecover Scout, or you just don't have like the protection in the card type that you want it, right? You're a deck based around enchantments, and while you do have some enchantments that can protect your creatures, you're often relying on other creatures or instants and sorceries to act as protection for your threats, which can be a little awkward because obviously I'm an enchantment deck. I want as many enchantments as possible. And if I can get my protection in the form of enchantments, then I'm going to try to get my protection in the form of enchantments. This allows for this kind of card to play like a totally different role, a royal role. It lets you play this card out closer to like a Blossoming Defense than like a Tamiyo's Safekeeping, if you know what I mean. Like being able to play this card as oh, you tried to kill my thing, well now I get to protect my thing is good. That's what you're going to want it to do. But if you're a deck that has other cards like All That Glitters and Ethereal Armor or any of the Enchantress kind of effects, you are going to get additional bonuses because you have played another enchantment that really kind of pushes it forward. So it's kind of a funny card where it's like, oh, this is neat. Like, sure, I guess this does a thing. But in practice, I think it's actually kind of exciting because it does something a little unique. Something a little interesting. On that note, I'm definitely not updating the set review here. Definitely not updating the Canadian Highlander set review. Nope, not doing it. Shepherding Spirits. This is a 6-mana 4/5 spirit with flying and plane cycling. This is just another. They've added more cyclers, which is perfect for 8-land Emeria. I just give me all the cyclers possible, and if I can get them, plane cycling is the best one. Like, just keep doing this. I fucking love plane cycling. I like cycling in general, but also it's kind of boring. It's kind of just like, oh, dang, your card didn't work in this exact spot. Guess you better cash it in for a very low cost so it does. But like plane cycling is just like, hell yeah. You draw this late game, boom, 4/5 flyer. You have this early game and you want to fix your mana or hit your land drops, boom. You just plane cycle it. I think it's pretty great. Split Up. 1 white for a sorcery. Choose one. Destroy all tapped creatures. Destroy all untapped creatures. So, I think reading this card as a Wrath of God is just going to make you disappointed. Like, if you treat this card as a Wrath effect in your blue-white control decks or your white-X like mid-range decks or whatever, you are going to feel very underwhelmed because you're like, oh shit, like this card just doesn't do what I want half the time, right? Or if my opponent on an aggressive deck is like, turn a thing sideways, post-combat, play another thing, you are going to be like, well, I can kill one of these and then I just die to the other one, and that stinks. And it does stink. But I do like this card. I like this card not as a 3-mana, like a Wrath that you play on turn 3, though that can happen in certain matchups. I tend to like this as a 3-mana Wrath that you play on like turn 5 to 7, you know? Like, it's a Wrath that you can cast that might not hit everything, but it'll hit enough things and let you leave up counter magic or let you leave up another, removal spell or whatever. And like, if this trades 1-for-1, that's not exciting, but if the thing was going to kill you, then sure, that's fine, right? Like, if you're like, oh, well, I can't kill their 1-mana 2/1, but I can kill like a mana dork and their 3-drop, or I can just use this to trade with their 4-drop or whatever, then sure, that's fine. Like, sometimes you will have to play cards like this as though they are relatively inefficient removal spells, and that's okay. That's good. That's interesting. I like that this doesn't just, do everything you want it to do and also like buy you groceries for the month or whatever. I will give this a shot in Blue-White Control and Gladiator. I don't know if I'm going to be playing this in Canadian Highlander, as you already have a couple of your Wraths locked in. But yeah, I'd be willing to try this out in Gladiator. This card's kind of interesting. Split Skin Doll. It's 1 and a white for a 2/1 artifact creature toy. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and then you discard a card unless you control another creature with power 2 or less. It's a card where if you are super desperate for more like Elvish Visionary type of effects, you could maybe make this work. But if that's not what you're looking for, then why are you playing this card? Like, it's just a very awkward, like, I guess it can act as like a Merfolk Traders in white, but we already have that with a Rafine's Informant. And we are getting another Spirited Companion from Foundations, like that has been officially previewed. So it's kind of weird where it's like, if you really want this effect, you could just wait a month. Actually, that's just fucking Magic the Gathering in 2024, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, this card's cool, but if you just want this effect, just wait a month and they'll print another one. GCU Pure Big Mad Boatman, welcome back for the 16th month. Howdy, howdy. Does make it into Aristocrats? I think you'll find yes. Thank you for the 16 months. The Wandering Rescuer, 3 white for a 3/4 legendary human samurai noble with flash, convoke, double strike, and other tap creatures you control have hexproof. I like this card. I like this card quite a bit. This doesn't actually cost 5 mana. This costs like 3 mana or 2 mana. It's a pretty nice protective piece. 3/4 double strike is quite nice. That is a stat line that can kill a lot of things and survive getting double blocked, and obviously survives a bolt. I think that this card is something that you are mostly playing to like gotcha on their end step. Like I get obviously because it has flash and whatnot, you're looking to do that. But like to me, this feels like the card where you don't actually cast it until your opponent goes to kill something, you know? Like that can make it a little awkward holding it into your hand. Or you could just jam, like in like Canlander or whatever, just jam. There are just decks that can't deal with a 3/4 double strike. The fact that it's a human, the fact that it has, you know, obviously convoke and flash, pretty nice. Hits like a truck, holds equipment well. Yeah, I'll give this card a shot. I'm higher on this card, I imagine, than most people will be, but it's a nice top end, especially because, you know, the white creature decks or the human decks, they do make a lot of tokens. Yeah. And Midriff. All right, I'm sending you to Horny Jail. Although that is nice, Midriff. Oh no, now I'm sent to Horny Jail. I mean, I guess I could talk about this card. Toby Beastie Befriender. 2 and a white for a 1/1 legendary human wizard. When Toby Beastie Befriender enters, you create a 4/4 white beast creature token with this creature can't attack or block alone. And as long as you control 4 or more creature tokens you control have flying. I'm not super high on this card. It does make 5 worth of stats. And you can create scenarios where this can slam in. Or be a pretty big blocker. Like you do get 2 permanents on 1. Oh, Gribble. Dale Gribble over here. I just think there are just better cards to play at 3 mana. It is kind of nice that you can flicker this card though. Like being able to make a bunch of 4/4s can be pretty good. Can be pretty scary, honestly, in like a blink deck. Or even in a deck with a bunch of helping hands and unearths. But it's 2024. Looking at a card like this, I'm like, this could be really good and could set you up for doing things, but I'm just not super impressed with it. Yeah, not that impressed with this card. But I am willing to be wrong. Like, I'm willing to just like die to this card after it gets blinked. Good morning, Thomas. How are you this fine day? Trapped in the Screen. 2 and a white for an enchantment with Ward 2. When Trapped in the Screen enters, you exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment an opponent controls until Trapped in the Screen leaves the battlefield. I like this card. It's kind of like the... What is it? What's the one from MKM? There's one from MKM that does something like... Or not, maybe not MKM. It's from March the Machine, right? It's got like Ward 3 and it targets anything. Yeah, I feel like that card can show up. Seal from Existence. Thank you, Shirtall. I feel like the Seal from Existence could show up in something like Blue-White Control. But this card is something that I imagine it will show up, but likely only in an Enchantress deck. Ward 2 is very nice to have access to. Artifact, enchantment, or creature hits most things. Doesn't hit planeswalkers, which they really have started to exclude and planeswalker or planeswalker from their cards. Kind of curious as to why. They started adding it to all their cards. Be like, this hits creature or planeswalker or player or planeswalker. And everybody liked that. And now they don't have it. And I don't get it. Feels weird. No, I think Seal from Existence is stronger. However, it's nice to have redundancy, especially when it has an easier mana cost to achieve. They don't print planeswalkers anymore, so why put it on? But they still print some planeswalkers. Not to mention, you have a large backlog of planeswalkers, right? Like... Maybe it's because they don't print a lot of planeswalkers anymore. Like, they've limited themselves. They've actually showed some restraint for the first time in recorded history, as well as planeswalkers don't really see play in Commander. That said, there are 27 legal planeswalkers in Standard right now. Like, that's not nothing. Also, like, the best deck in the format plays planeswalkers, right? Like the Boros deck or the blue-white deck. Like, if you play Standard right now, or even black-green, like, all the best decks in the format play planeswalkers, right? In Standard. I mean, it's probably too late for you to, like, Oblivion Ring the Vraska, or just, like, if you Oblivion Ring a Liliana to the Veil, it feels not great anyways. But, like, I don't know, hitting the blue-white Jace or, like, the Archangel Elspeth could be pretty needed. Unwanted Remake. 1 white for an instant. Destroy target creature. Its controller manifests dread. Manifest dread is another keyword here. It's a new one. Destroy target I already read that. So manifest dread is very similar to manifest in that the player looks at the top 2 cards of their library, puts one of them face down as a 2/2 creature, and the other goes into the graveyard. And then if it's a creature card, it can be turned up face time any for its mana cost. So effectively you manifest, but you do so while you also put something into the bin. This card sucks. I'm pretty sure this card is like flat out just terrible. It is 1 mana and obviously gets to trade up most of the time, but this is 2024. We're casting Swords to Plowshares on like 3 drops, right? This only hits creatures, which I guess makes sense for the mana cost. But like Manifest Dread is so good. Like, I'm convinced this ability is cracked, right? Like, you get to make a 2/2 that can then oopsie doopsie surprise somebody with an onboard trick, kind of, while also binning into the graveyard. And, you know, God knows how many other synergies that this can work with. I just feel like this card is not very powerful, and also the name is a very interesting name, you know? Unwanted Remake. Very interesting name. Interior Explosion. Welcome back for the 53rd month. Funny message. Ha ha. Ho ho. Hee hee hoo hoo. Thank you for the support. Glad to have you, Say good to see you. And then Veteran Survivor is our last new white card. 1 white for a 2/1 human survivor with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Veteran Survivor is tapped, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. And as long as there are 3 or more cards exiled with Veteran Survivor, it gets +3/+3 and has hexproof. So Savannah Lions have kind of fallen out of favor. Just in general, the ones that still see play often have added utility, kind of in line with like Dauntless Bodyguard, or I guess in Canlander you occasionally see stuff like Soldier of the Pantheon or Mardu Woe Reaper. And I think this card is, I mean, it's different from Soldier of the Pantheon, which is actually just getting worse, which is very funny for reasons that I have a bunch of complaints about. Yeah, Dryad Militant, also pretty good. I think I like this card for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a sucker for 1 mana 2/1s, even if they are getting much worse. It is a human, which is important, as well as just repeatable graveyard hate can really stifle the development from some of the blue decks or obviously some aggressive decks. You can only do it on main phase, which is a little awkward. You can't even like instant speed crew something and muck their graveyard. But once, like, if this manages to survive, which it is a survivor, so, you know, get it? It's survived and it gets huge and cannot be killed. Then this becomes a massive threat. Like, this is genuinely something worth protecting, worth building up on, which is wild because it's a 1-drop, right? Like, it just kills people. This card kills people. Sorry, I had a piece of sausage staring at me. I ate half my breakfast. Card's good. On to the guests. There's really only one guest I care about. Because Hallowed Haunting, excuse me, is already on Arena. We get a Soul Warden. We get actual Soul Warden. 1 mana, 1/1, human cleric. Whenever another creature enters, you gain 1 life. We get an actual Soul Warden. Great. Wait, Soul Warden is also on Arena? Oh, fuck, it's Soul's Attendant. Right. Man, this sucks. Okay. Why didn't you give us Soul's Attendant? Why didn't you give us Soul's Attendant? All right, I take it back. I'm turning off the stream. All right, on to blue. Abhorrent Oculus is our first blue card. 2 and a white for a 5/5 creature, Eye. As an additional cost to cast a spell, exile 6 cards from your graveyard. It has flying. And it says, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, manifest Dredge. Did I say 2 and a white? 2 and a blue. 2 and a blue. You'll have to excuse me. I'm on tilt over it being Soul Warden instead of Soul's Attendant. Soul's Attendant would be frustrating on Arena because you can't always yield. It would also probably be frustrating on Arena because, well, you're playing against a life gain deck. What does Helping Hand and Earth do? Oh, it puts us into play immediately. Okay. Let me say this again so I don't shit the bed on the mana cost. 2 and a blue for a 5/5 Eye. With, as an additional cost to cast a spell, you exile 6 cards from your graveyard. It has flying, and has at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you manifest Dread, excuse me. So, 5/5 flyer, pretty difficult to get rid of. Manifest Dread pretty strong. We've talked about this. Getting it on our opponent's upkeep, also kind of weird timing, but I guess it's nice. Like, it means that we can just like ideally get it immediately if they untap. After they untap, but before they draw. This is a very large cost. The strength of Delve is that it's flexible and that you are not paying a lot of mana despite the fact that you are, exiling a bunch of cards. Like, yeah, if you exile 6 cards off Treasure Cruise or Murktide Region, you're still... Well, no, hold on. You're not paying that. If you only need to exile 5 cards off Murktide. You only 6 cards off Tombstalker. I don't know. There are a bunch of ways that you could cheat this in that people are trying to mention. I just don't think this card is very good. I don't think this card is particularly good. 5 toughness is nice. I will say that. I'm getting 2 triggers, but 3 mana plus 6 cards. That's a pretty hefty cost. And like, if we are a deck with Unearth and Helping Hand, and we're looking to play, like an Esper Mentor kind of deck in Gladiator, then this is a reasonable thing to reanimate with those cards. But I'm just like not so enthused. Again, despite the fact that I wanted some more hoops to jump through, or some cards to potentially have downsides, there are also spots where what are we doing with this card? Like, why would I play this when I could play any other card that has been printed before this card? And I don't think there's a great reason for this. Too hefty of a cost. Bit of an awkward setup to get it going too. Not the kind of thing I necessarily want to reanimate either, like with like proper reanimation spells. So I'm pretty low on this card. I'm pretty low on this card. Hey, it's another room. Chong chong. Bottomless Pit and Locker Room. So Bottomless Pit, 1 blue, enchantment room. When you unlock this door, return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand. And then Locker Room, 4 and a blue. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So we kind of talked about the blue Glimmer enchantment that becomes the Coastal Piracy. I'm just more excited to play this card than that one. I don't think this card is going to be Canlander playable. The Locker Room is a bit too expensive. The fact that it's an enchantment is also a little awkward for the decks that typically want this effect. They would just prefer to have more instants and sorceries to combo with all their cards that give a shit about instants and sorceries. But in Gladiator, like, I like the blue X tempo decks, despite their lack of tournament prowess, is how I'm going to word that. I do like this style of effect, especially because it's kind of like a weird silent departure where you just like bounce their thing and then 5 mana later on to try and do a thing that is like pretty big tempo advantage. I don't know. Felt like it was interesting enough to look at. It's also just a cheap enchantment that it impacts the board. So like the fact that this card could just show up in Enchantress alongside like Seal of Removal is kind of nice. Oh. That's it. Believe it's a good card. Well, it's a role player, right? Like, it's not super exciting. You play it because you're a deck that just wants a density of these, like, this style of effect or card. This one does not do anything relevant. This card's not good. This card's not good. This card's not good. Here's another Cycler. I mean, we could talk about this card briefly. Enduring Curiosity. Incredible artwork. 2 and 2 blue for a 4/3 enchantment creature Cat Glimmer with Flash. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. When Enduring Curiosity dies, if it was a creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control, it's an enchantment. Now, I did kind of poo-poo this card a little bit because it is a 4-mana creature that dies to Lightning Bolt that does not have an ETB, right? It does have some insurance against it getting bolted, and that's pretty nice. That's kind of exciting. Like, I'm not going to pretend like this last line of text is not incredibly powerful. Flash is the saving grace for this card, in that being able to develop a big threat on their end step that even if they have a kill spell, it is not going to really line up super well for them if you have additional creatures, right? Like being able to flash this in and then they kill it and it comes back and then you draw a card on hit is going to mean that this card has effectively replaced itself and your opponent is now down a card. That sounds pretty good to me. And the fact that you can use all your mana on their end step also makes it pretty nice at lining up with like what your opponent is doing. Not to mention, if this just survives, a 4/3 like in blue is not that common. Like it has this like, what is it, Stoic Sphinx kind of vibe of just like, wow, that is larger than I expected. And could just kill people with this card. So I know I use this as an example for why I prefer the white Enduring Glimmer over all the rest of them, but I do think that Flash gives this something of a home in like a mono blue deck or a honestly even like a blue black or a blue green kind of tempo / flash / like evasive threats plus curiosity type cards. Ooh. Enter the Enigma. 1 blue for a sorcery. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Draw a card. Love it. Love it. It's simple. It's cheap. It replaces itself. And it lets you smack for a whole bunch of damage with your, like, Slick Shot Show Off or your Quirion Dryad or your Psychic Frog or whatever. Like, it's just a prowessy kind of like Miracle Grow card. And I'm really into this. Slip Through Space, I believe, is the card that you were thinking of, Cross Hunter. Which is, yeah, it's this card, but devoid. And honestly, that devoid was very awkward. The devoid on Slip Through Space meant that you couldn't pitch it to, you know, obviously Force Will or Force Negation or whatever, which is a genuine cost. It's a genuine cost. Yeah, big fan of this card. I like these little role players. I like getting more of them, you know? This is a 5-mana 2/7. That's very funny. This is a big dork. This card's kind of interesting. I'm kind of low on it, but I do like... I want this card to be better than I think it is. Fear of Imposters. 1 blue for a 3/2 enchantment creature Nightmare with Flash. And when Fear of Imposters enters, you counter target spell. Its controller manifests Dread. One of the reasons why I don't think I like this card is because I value Manifest Dread pretty highly. I think that is a very powerful ability. And this, you'll see this as we go throughout the set, where I start, you know, evaluating some of the cards that Manifest Dread a lot higher than I think other players might. So this hits the table, counters a thing, gives them a 2/2 and a little selection, and you are left with a 3/2 that will trade with their 2/2. And not in a way where you're like, oh, you get a token and I can just bounce the token, because you don't exactly want to bounce manifested cards, because they are cards and it goes back to their hand. But yeah, I don't like this card because I evaluate Manifest Dread as being very strong, and that while countering an opponent's thing is pretty nice and giving myself a 3/2, this 3/2 just trades with their 2/2 and they get some added selection. And I don't like modifying this card in its power and toughness, or like interacting with their manifest card is also just kind of awkward and not something I'm super interested in playing. On the other hand, Flood Pit's Drowner. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 merfolk with flash vigilance. When Flood Pit's Drowner enters, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. And then pay 1 and a blue, tap, shuffle Flood Pit's Drowner and target creature with a stun counter on it into their owner's libraries. I like this card. I like this card in Merfolk. I like this card in like that mono blue mid-rangey kind of deck that I played a long time ago, but would like to revisit. You know, like a Tempest Djinn, like kind of deck that wants to just play a bunch of annoying tricksy sort of cards. This isn't a color pie break. Vigilance is in blue. They added Vigilance to blue like 2 years ago. Don't worry. Do not worry. Yeah, card's pretty good. What do I think? Yeah, I don't have much to say about this card. Shuffling for free is the color pie break? No, we've been doing this for so goddamn long. But I guess like, I don't know, this Vortex Elemental, what is it? Void Stalker. I mean, not Time Elemental, but you know, like that kind of class of card is not. This is not new ground for blue. No, I wouldn't play this in Enchantress. And I wouldn't play this in Bestow Beatdown. I feel like I feel like Bestow Beatdown and Enchantress, they are very locked in what they are doing. This one's kind of funny, even though it's just a ley line. Oh, Mirror Room. That is another card. Mirror Room and Fractured Realm. This is a room. The Mirror Room. When you unlock this door, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it's a reflection in addition to its other creature types. And then Fractured Realm. 5 blue blue. If a triggered ability of a permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So, this is a 3-mana clone. This is a 3-mana clone that makes 2 like permanents, right? So you have the Mirror Room and you have the clone, which is pretty nice because as this Mirror Room sits around and you get to do whatever you want with your clone card, once you hit the late game, you can get to the Fractured Realm, which basically just reads that you win the game. The Mirror Room itself, though, can find I'd be interested in trying this out in like a Bant Blink deck or in the Enigmatic Incarnation deck, where this is an enchantment that does a thing that creates some additional value that I then convert into something else. I mean, I guess no, because this would be a 10 drop, so it hits an 11 drop. I don't know if we have an No. I guess you're sacrificing. What's the mana value of this permanent in play? It has all the characteristics of an unlocked room. Oh, well, that's much better than what I was talking about. But yeah. That's much better because now for the Enigmatic Incarnation deck, we are going to be able to find a 4-drop, which is your deck just has so many 4-drops. Yeah, I like this card. Ignore this part until you get to the late game, and then this is great. I just like this part. Overlord of the Flood Pits. 3 blue for a 5/3 flyer with impending for 1 blue. It's an enchantment creature avatar horror. That says whenever it enters or attacks, you draw 2 cards and discard a card. So this is a catalog on an enchantment that will then be able to die to lightning bolt. I'm not super excited to play this card because I don't know how much I want to play 3 mana for a catalog at sorcery speed. Although it does, like, there is that kind of inevitability, but like 3 toughness is just so difficult to protect. I'm not super into this kind of card. Maybe my evaluation is going to change. I mean, I could play this in big blue in Gladiator. Yeah, I could play this in big blue in Gladiator. Maybe in like a reanimator deck, I don't hate it as well. Like, yeah, just it's a big Dorcas that like once they are done dealing with all the other threats that you've generated, you can then just start attacking for 5 and doing things. Yeah, but protecting a card that dies to a 1 mana card and like, or rather a 1 mana effect is really tough to do because you are almost always trading down in mana in order to do so. And you're also using such a valuable kind of spell because often your soft permission doesn't really work. And so you would need like hard permission, which do you really want to use actual factual counterspell on lightning bolt? And I think the answer is no. I do agree with what people are saying of like, this is what I wish mythics were. Just big fucking dorks. Like this is, look at this jerk. Look at this jerk. Drawing some cards, doing some stuff. Ooh. I'm going to play this card in Chisei, that's for sure. Not to talk about Commander. If this card is good and limited, I think I might enjoy this limited environment. It's a 2-mana 2/1 flying that enters tapped. That's it. It's got 2 power, 2 mana flying. Love it. Ooh. Scrabbling Skull Crab. 1 blue for an 0/3 crab skeleton with Eerie. Whenever an enchantment you control enters, and whenever you fully unlock a room, target player mills 2 cards. So go with me on this journey. Because I think this card is playable. But I think this card is playable, not necessarily in Gladiator, but in Canadian Highlander. Because this can target any player, which includes myself. And now we have redundancy with Hedron Crab. So we have 2 1-drop creatures that can target ourselves and mill ourselves. And if we're milling ourselves, then we can win the game. Or we could just go infinite to mill out our opponent. And the reason why I'm excited about this is because there's some flexibility. The deck list that I have in mind with this is like an enchantment lands combo deck. One with, you know, the synergies between enchantments and lands, they overlap pretty cleanly, right? Like think of all so think of some of the most busted lands cards with Fast Bond and Exploration, even stuff like Druid class being an enchantment that is going to help facilitate your lands combos. You got a bunch of crap that you can play. And while there are some cleaner ways of killing your opponent in those decks, both these stupid crabs fill up your graveyard and then kill your opponent. Like they kind of fill the role of like brain freezing yourself before you brain freeze your opponent. And I just like having some redundancy with this. Yeah, like this card with Replenish, Hedron Crab with whatchamacallit? Life from the Loam and Splendid Reclamation. I don't know why I can't remember this card's name. Well, the Constellation card from Theros Beyond Death, I believe, does this one target player? Oh, this is target player. Oh, wait, did you always have redundancy? Holy shit, we always had redundancy. Oh my god, now we've got even more redundancy. I mean, that one has 2 toughness. 2 toughness and 3 toughness are a little bit different, right? Like this being able to block Ragavan and other cheap threats is not nothing because you don't want to die. Cool. Is this enough reason to justify the enchantment counter creature considering you're trying to mill them out rather than attack for lethal? No, because when we mill them out, we're going to mill them out like at one time, you know? You're right, Porpoises of Known. You're absolutely right. Enchantment Turbo Mill will be coming to Canadian Highlander soon. I mean, it's a list that I've been like milling about for quite some time, but it's cool that we now have a lot of redundancy on our 1-drops to take advantage of this. Hey, look, a good card. Silent Hall Creeper. 1 in a blue for a 1/1 enchantment creature horror. Silent Hall Creeper can't be blocked. Whenever Silent Hall Creeper deals combat damage to a player, you choose one that hasn't been chosen. You either put 2 1/1 counters on Silent Hall Creeper, you draw a card, or Silent Hall Creeper becomes a copy of another target creature you control. So I imagine the play pattern for this card. There are 2 primary play patterns. Well, actually, there's multiple. That's the beauty of this card. But like, let's cover some of them, right? 2 mana 1/1 unblockable. When I hit you the first time, I get to draw a card. So it's already replaced itself. I have an unblockable threat, and I've just drawn a card. The second time I hit you, I put 2 counters on it. So now that I have guaranteed that I have replaced itself, so I'm not down a card, I was just down the mana to play this. And it now is a legitimate threat in that it is a 3/3 unblockable. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because then you can have it become a copy of another creature you control, but you can also just not play another creature because you have a 3/3 unblockable, and that is a pretty good clock. That is just something that kills people. If you do have another creature, chances are the creatures that you are going to play alongside this card are, well, either pretty good because you're playing this in Canadian Highlander or Gladiator, and you should probably include good cards in your deck, or the other creature that it's copying is going to be something that is also evasive, right? And so if this copies, even if this copies like a Flying Men, then I just have a 3/3 flyer, which for most cases is very similar to a 3/3 unblockable. But you could also just hit them, turn it into a 3/3 to get around any like pesky cheap removal. I mean, you still die to bolt and whatnot, but you know, make sure that you're not going to get bowmastered or that you are not going to get hit by like a Renin 6 down tick or whatever. Or you can just like hit them and make it a copy of a very important creature you control. Like you play out a Psychic Frog and now I have 2 Psychic Frogs and it is just terrible for everybody involved. So yeah, this is a card that I imagine we'll see some play in both Canlander and Gladiator in the decks that tend to play cheap evasive blue threats. So like think of like Flying Men or a Tempo deck can play this card. Nope. I mean, I could talk about this card, but it's really bad. The Mind Skinner. 3 blue for a 10/1 legendary enchantment creature Nightmare. The Mind Skinner can't be blocked. And if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards. That's it. I think it's kind of funny. It's kind of a neat commander. I do appreciate that this, while it feels very blue, it also feels pretty unique in like the kind of cards that you would want to play with it, right? Like, because then we're talking about a blue creature. We're talking about a mono blue deck that is looking to modify power, but not looking to like necessarily play cards that, not necessarily a deck that would play like, you know, sort of X and Y because you're looking for just more raw stats. So I think that's kind of cool. Skinner. The Tale of Tamio, R.I.P., my sweet baby girl. 2 and a blue for a saga, a legendary enchantment saga. I think this is the first legendary saga, although there might be one from Lord of the Rings. Chapters 1, 2, and 3. Mill 2 cards, and if 2 cards that share a card type were milled this way, draw a card and repeat this process. This one is very interesting to me. Because it can just pop off or just do nothing. I think this card is good, though. I'll just come out and say it right away. Filling your graveyard is pretty nice. Like, it's just a nice thing to have. Once this card replaces itself, like, if this card ends up being Divination, great. But it's also, like, Divination on, like, a timer of, like, you get your Divination, you get to fill your yard, you get to play this in a deck with like heavy lands, heavy instants or whatever, heavy enchantment even, and like try to reliably set up milling duplicates to replace itself and then just keep going. And then you get to the ultimate and this just like wins the game, right? Or at least does something pretty gross. Like, it's not going to consistently draw 2 cards on one single chapter. It might hit the battlefield, draw a card, then go to the next turn and draw another card. Or like you may even skip a step and it'll draw another card on 3 or whatever. And then it just gets to this and you're just like, all right, I guess I'll swords that, ponder, I'll do all these different things. There's a very high ceiling to this card. And even if you start whiffing, I think the floor, if you build your deck, this is a pretty interesting card to look at. I'll certainly try this in Gladiator, but honestly, I wouldn't be that surprised if it even saw a little bit of play in Canlander, albeit in a niche kind of deck, because this can really just fucking rip. This card's kind of funny. Twist Reality, instant for 1 blue. You choose 1 counter target spell or you manifest dread. It's I don't think this is going to be Gladiator playable for most decks, but if you're a deck that's really looking to like max out on counter spells, like if you are building Seinfeld in mono blue, like Seinfeld and Gladiator or whatever, then this is not the worst thing to play, because a surprise 2/2 blocker that also just like sculpts doesn't sculpt the top of your deck, but like can feed into the graveyard is kind of interesting. For all the like cancel plus set mechanic, I think this one is more interesting than some of the other ones, especially when they're printed at common. I mean, this card is kind of interesting. Unable to Scream. 1 blue for an enchantment creature aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a toy artifact creature with base power and toughness 0/2 in addition to its other types. And as long as enchanted creature is face down, it can't be turned face up. This is just like another witness protection sort of card. It's nice to have some redundancy. Making it an 0/2 is better than making it a 1/1, in my opinion. And also making it an artifact just makes it a little bit easier for certain decks to deal with in case like you're worried about them blowing up the Unable to Scream. Yeah, just another cool redundancy piece here. No. All right, that's it for the blue cards in the main set. Special guests. Expropriate. 7 blue for a sorcery with Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player votes for time or money. For each vote, take an extra turn. For each time vote, take an extra turn after this one. For each money vote, choose the permanent owned by the voter and gain control of it, and you exile Expropriate. So in 1v1, this is 9 mana, take an extra turn. Is this, hold on, for each money vote, choose a permanent. Yeah, it's holy shit, why can I not read this card? I haven't played this card since it came out. For each money vote, choose permanent by this and exile this. Oh, right. So you vote time. Right. For whatever reason, my brain was reading this And I was like, I thought this had a tide for something. You know, I thought it had Council's Judgment kind of text. And I just could not get past that. But it doesn't, although it kind of does. You play this and you vote for time. And your opponent has to say, well, do I want to give my opponent 2 extra turns? Which almost always just wins the game. Or do I want to give them my best permanent and an extra turn? Which almost always just wins them the game. So this is like 9 mana, more or less win the game. And that's pretty good. It is 9 mana. So you do have to play this in a deck that either has a whole bunch of ramp or a whole bunch of like copying spells. Like if this does see play in Gladiator, it's going to be in like a Temir like Storm turns kind of list, or like a blue-red turns deck that plays like a bunch of treasure generation, or like maybe like the Bant ramp deck that a Bant or Sultai ramp deck that has a bunch of taking extra turns cards. Although you could play this in the like what is it? It's not Eerie Ultimatum. Emergent Ultimatum type deck, right? Getting this off Emergent Ultimatum is pretty nice. It's another huge extra turn card off of Emergent Ultimatum. It's pretty scary. Big Swapple, welcome back for the 2nd month. How you doing? How you been? Thank you so much for all the support. Glad to have you, May. Say good to see you. And then the second card that's a special guest from Duskmourn in blue is Phantasmal Image. This card rules. It's so fucking good. 1 in a blue for a 0/0 illusion. You can have it enter as a copy of any creature in play except its illusion and its other type. So when it becomes the target of a spell or ability, you sacrifice it. It's a 2 mana clone. It's really good. Play this in your creature combo decks. Play this in your like Prime Speaker Vanifar combo pod decks. Play this in your blink decks. I know you can't blink it, like you can't target it with a blink spell, but trust me, it's just so good. Phantasmal Image is so good. All right, on to black. I don't know if I should be able to get through all black before I have to take off. I wish I had more time today. I'm going to have a bunch of time tomorrow, but I have a doctor's appointment and a recording of North 100 set review for this later today. Why does this guy have Jordans on? Come back wrong. For 2 and a black for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. If a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. This card's kind of neat. 3 mana, kill your thing. I get the ETB. Is a nice way of trying to create parity in a world where so many creatures have powerful ETBs. Also, in a desperation kind of position, you can destroy your own creature and just get it back for another ETB, and then it's in your graveyard and you can reanimate it again. It's expensive, but I do think this is pretty good. Like, I think that this is, well, I think it is at least worth trying, because this is a pretty powerful ability. Just like 3 mana, kill your thing. No questions asked. Even if it's at sorcery speed, like it is, that's totally reasonable, right? No, it doesn't give them haste, but if you kill their haste creature, then you can smack them with it. I'd be willing to play this in like a Abzan mid-range, Abzan kind of creature combo, Chthonian Nightmare kind of deck. I'd be willing to try this out in like maybe a mono black control or mono black mid-range deck as well. Yeah, there's some neat play to this card, but it is very expensive. Cynical Loner. 1 in a black for a 3/1 human survivor. Cynical Loner can't be blocked by glimmers. I believe the glimmers are They're hope. They're like supposed to be like a glimmer of hope in this dark world. They're helpful spirits. And it has survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Cynical Loner is tapped, you may search your library for a card and put into your graveyard, then shuffle. That's kind of neat. It's a 2-mana 3/1 that when it is tapped in your second main, you get to Entomb, which is a very powerful effect. But getting this card tapped and having it survive is a little difficult to fulfill. Also, finding a spot that wants this. Like, a really aggressive mono black deck could play this and just be like, well, I'm going to play this. I'm going to kill their creatures anyways. I'm going to clock in for 3. And then I'm going to get to Entomb like a Bloodghast or Entomb a Tenacious Underdog or a Scrap Heap Scrounger or Hogak or whatever, right? Like you can find something pretty cool. I don't think that this is going to be entombing up a Lion's Eye Diamond or something pretty massive, you know? But it is pretty neat that it gets to Entomb. That's not nothing. I do kind of dislike this card in just like concept alone. I don't know. It's I am on Shivam's side of like I'm a I don't know. I guess people would say that I'm a relatively cynical person. I tend to feel like I'm not so much cynical as I am just more realistic at times than others. But I don't know. I feel like in Magic, like it would be nice if there was some kind of saving grace to this whole set instead of just like a collection of well, I mean, we don't have to get into it. I said I wouldn't get into it, so I'm not going to get into it. No. Ooh, yeah, now we're talking. Demonic Council. 1 and a black for a sorcery. It says search your library for a demon card. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And then it has Delirium. I don't know why you're doing that. Then it has Delirium. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead search your library for any card and put it into your hand. I think this card is pretty fucking good. I think it gets a lot better in Canadian Highlander, where hitting Delirium in your Storm deck is pretty easy, given that you are a deck that just fills your graveyard with cheap cantrips or artifacts and fetch lands and whatnot. I think that's pretty great. Not to mention, like, just 2 mana find a demon into your hand if we are a Storm deck is something that I can get behind. Because I'm just going to find Gristlebrand. Or I'm going to find Rune-Scarred Demon. Or I'm going to find... hold on. I don't want name. I want mana value. Like, I'm going to... Here are some demons that I could tutor with this card. The new Elder Demon from the set that we'll talk about in a second. Gristlebrand. Rune-Scarred Demon. Oh, Hoarding Broodlord isn't a demon, is it? Burning Rune Demon. I mean, I mostly just want to find Gristlebrand. Truthfully. You could get Demon Lord Belzenlock. I mean, it finds Chaos Defiler. That's kind of cool. But I'm mostly just playing this because I think hitting Delirium in those combo decks is not the most difficult thing in the world to do. And then being able to just find Gristlebrand, if this isn't finding Black Lotus or Yawgmoth's Will or Underworld Breach, is something that maybe the Storm deck should have done in the first place. You know? I think maybe Storm decks should have been doing this in the first place, is just playing a Gristlebrand. It's just like, yeah, I'll get up to 8 mana and then cast this big demon that can just win the game. But I like that card quite a bit. Doomsday Excruciator. Black for a 6/6 demon with flying. When Doomsday Excruciator enters, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. I don't think this card is particularly playable. There might be some weirdo setup that you can do with this card where you could just play this and then you mill your opponent out, or you have Thassa's Oracle and whatever. But getting up to 6 black pretty tough. Obviously reanimating it makes it a little bit easier. This card is,
Eggs.
yeah, it's, I don't believe this card has much competitive viability, and I also don't think it's particularly fun. Cha-chong. Yeah, this plus Ultra Dementia. Ooh. Enduring Tenacity. 2 black for a 4/3 enchantment creature, Snake Glimmer. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. And when Enduring Tenacity dies, if it was a creature, return to the battlefield under its owner's control. It's an enchantment. They really like making these cards die to Lightning Bolt. I guess because it doesn't matter as much. This one I'm a little unenthused by, despite my love of this artwork and wishing that the set was just more of this and less of this, which I won't talk about. I said I wouldn't talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. We don't really have a use for the Sanguine Bond kind of effects in here. Although this is a very cheap one, like 4 mana. Sanguine Bond is 5 mana, and most of them are like 5 or more, depending on the like additional effects. I guess Veto is 3, but again, having some kind of redundancy in that is pretty nice. What was the Veto kill? There was like a Veto one shot, right? Was it Blood Tribute? They lose half their life and you gain life. It's kicked. Okay, so that doesn't really do what we want to do. Yeah, I'm just not. I don't think this card is good enough. Maybe if it had lifelink or something else, but it's just like a 4-mana 4/3 with this ability. I'm not super excited to play this card compared to the other ones. And the other ones I'm also kind of low on, except for the white one, and the blue one's coming around on me. Ooh. Fear of Lost Teeth. 1 black for a 1/1 enchantment creature Nightmare. When it dies, it deals 1 damage to any target and you gain 1 life. Fear of Lost Teeth. Some of these fears are very odd. Fear of the Dark. I get that. Fear of Lost Teeth. What? I guess like if you're a literal actual child, maybe? But just feels like kind of weird. A common nightmare? Yeah, I know it's that common. Dentophobia. Is this just fear of getting your teeth pulled out? What is dentophobia? Dentophobia is just a fear of anything involving dental process. Very odd. Very weird. I don't know. This doesn't really evoke, like I get that people are scared of everything. People have nightmares over everything. Nightmares of their teeth falling out is common. Folks, brush twice a day, at least, and floss. And if you can find yourself a mouthwash with a bit of fluoride in it, it'll do wonders. Devoid Melody for the 63rd month. Welcome back. Glad to have you. Good to see you. 63 wild. Yeah, that's too much time. That's so much time. Glad to have you, Amasa. Good to see you. Thank you so much for all the support. Yeah, this teeth is not playable. Funeral Room is kind of playable. Why did I open 2 of these? There you go. Funeral Room, 2 and a black for an enchantment room. And then there's also Awakening Hall, which is 6 black. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then when you unlock the Awakening Hall for 8 mana, return all creature cards from your graveyard to play. So this card, I think I like it in Gladiator Aristocrats because it just gives us another Blood Artist style of effect. And the way that Gladiator Aristocrats operates, because it doesn't have the same density of cheap sack outlets that Canlander Aristocrats is going to have, or cheap ways of putting cards in your graveyard and getting additional value. We have gotten some of them, right? We have access to like Goblin Bombardment and all the 2-mana ones, but we don't have Skull Clamp or Viscera Seer or whatever. Because of that, you lose your creatures a bit slower, or you lose them like through blocking and playing other bigger spells. And what I'm getting at is this kind of drags the game out a bit more. And it's not unrealistic for the games with Gladiator Aristocrats to get up to 8 mana, which then you ultimate, and you win the game. So while I do think it's a little too slow for Canlander Aristocrats or Canlander Bartered Tokens, I would like to try this out in Gladiator Aristocrats. Gladiator Aristocrats is a deck that I really enjoy, and it's one of the ones that anytime a new set comes out, I like to do a stream with it and like to play it because it always gets new toys. One of the benefits of, we talk about a lot of the negatives about them designing more cards for Commander. There are some benefits, because there are certain things that Commander players love beyond mozzarella sticks and dino nuggies that are pretty appealing like game pieces for other singleton formats or for even constructed formats. I'm gonna put that over there. No, I don't like that one. This Grievous Wound is very expensive. Ooh. This is just a little role player. Innocuous Rat. 1 in a black for a 1/1 rat. When it dies, you manifest dread. This is a Sultai Emissary. This is a card, or like a Brindle Shoat style card. Basically, it's a cheap creature that when it dies, it replaces itself. And it replaces itself by upgrading. And in this case, it replaces itself, upgrades, and then turns into then also like fuels your other graveyard interaction. So yeah, it is pretty, oh god, what's a good word for this? It's pretty not exactly something that describes it not being a threat or dangerous. Something I wish there was a word to describe it. It's pretty inconsequential. Well, no, it's a role player. It's a pretty good role player. But there's not a huge amount to talk about it. Leyline of the Void getting a reprint. Although, I think we have Leyline of the Void on Arena. Most certainly we do. Meathook Massacre 2. XX black for a legendary enchantment. When Meathook Massacre 2 enters, each player sacrifices X creatures. Whenever a creature you control dies, you may pay 3 life. If you do, return that creature card under your control with a finality counter on it. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they may pay 3 life. If they don't, return that card under your control with a finality counter on it. This is a bit of a weird one. Ignoring the name, this definitely feels like it's just a 4-mana enchantment that has, I guess, some upside if you draw it pretty late. This, to me, screams more Commander than anything. Finality counters kind of stops it. Yeah, finality counters kind of stop it from going like infinite. Maybe in mono black control, I'd be interested in playing this, because getting up to a whole shitload of mana is something that deck can do. And then you can win the game with this, but it's not as, I don't know, it just, I just don't really want to talk about this card. I will say, Clockwork Menagerie says, honestly, of all the overt fourth wall breaking things in the set, I think this is the one we mind the least. I would actually, personally, I think this one might be one of the more egregious ones. But we'll get to that when we get to that. I want to put a pin in that. And I'd like to bring back why I think this is one of the more egregious ones. Because it plays off of certain really pedantic, it plays off of pedantic expected responses of or defense. It's almost like they knew that this shit would stir people up, and like that it will. We don't need to do it now. We don't need to do it now. We'll get into it later. Nowhere to Run. 1 and a black for an enchantment with flash. When Nowhere to Run enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Creatures your opponents control can be targets of spells or abilities as though they didn't have hexproof, and ward abilities of those creatures do not trigger. I hate this shit. What is this? What is this last line of text? Like, this is just this. Where is it? This card that made a big stink. Right? Like it's the, like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like, God forbid your opponent plays cards that have countermeasures to your removal, and then you need to print a card that feels like it shouldn't exist. It's very weird. It is very, like, yeah, it's a countermeasure to a countermeasure. It is, like, I think it's kind of dog shit. Yeah, custom Magic ass card. I think this card, like, I can have gripes with the theming of the set and some of the card names and whatever for sure. But like at the end of the day, who cares? Like, I mean, who cares is definitely a reduction. I do care. It's important to care. This game means a lot to people, and obviously it's more than a game. But what I mean is that, like, at the end of the day, certain things can be ignored in favor of gameplay, right? If the gameplay is good, then what's the point? Like, what's the point of making too big of a stink about some of these cards, right? For certain players, it will be a big issue. But for me, if I'm looking at this through, like, if I'm evaluating this card through like a gameplay or competitive sense, then, like, if the gameplay is good, I don't care if you have, like, I don't know, fucking Laura Croft or whatever. But this shit is just, it's so clunky, and it's so like, hey, I think we screwed up. Like, it's very odd. I don't get it. It feels so unnecessary. As a card, I'm not super into playing this card as well. Like, it's just, I don't think it does enough. I would just rather play Long Goodbye. You know? Yeah. Not a fan. Popular Egotist. 2 and a black for a 3/2 human rogue with 1 and a black. Sacrifice another creature or enchantment. Popular Egotist gains indestructible until end of turn, and you tap it. And whenever you sacrifice a permanent, target opponent loses 1 and gains 1 life. So this card is not Mayhem Devil. I do not believe that you should play this card. Oh, this is the bestie card. Oh my god. Cut this shit out. Holy fuck. Act like you've been here before. Please, I'm begging you. People are calling it the cringest set of all time. I don't even want to fucking talk about this card. Don't play this card. It's too vulnerable. It's not great. This card is great art, but I'm not talking about that. This card's kind of interesting. I mean, we talked about the first land cycler, and there are additional land cyclers in the set. This one's kind of interesting because out of all of them, if you hard cast this thing, okay, hold on. Before I do anything, somebody Team Cream assemble, and your name is Joey Cream Pie. Are you okay? What the fuck? Well, there's a big hat. Team Cream assemble. Commander players cream their treasure-lined pants. Did Urkel Turtle create a summoning circle for Joey Cream Pie? Thanks for summoning me. Continue. Okay, great. So Ward discard a card is genuinely pretty scary. So this is like something that you could play in like a Reanimator deck and bring it back, and they do have to deal with this, right? It doesn't have any kind of evasion, but this will start killing you, and the Ward discard a card makes it a little difficult to get off the table. That's it. This is a card that might just be played for its stat line as well. We have another room. The Unholy Annex and Ritual Chamber. Unholy Annex is 2 and a black. Ritual Chamber is 3 black. So the Unholy Annex says at the beginning of your end step, you draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life. And then the Ritual Chamber says when you unlock this door, create a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying. I am a little worried about 2 life per turn. That is a lot of life to lose. I like drawing cards. I like paying life to draw cards. But paying 2 life, mandatory paying 2 life every turn to draw a card is a lot. That will kill you dead. Getting to make a 6/6 demon is pretty nice, but if you don't have additional demons, you're going to just start dying to this card super quickly. So I'm kind of low on this card. I imagine certain braver people will play this in like Black X or Mono Black decks in Gladiator, but I'm not convinced that this is something that I'm willing to play because this is just going to kill you so quickly. So quickly. Attack Cowboy, welcome back for the 65th month. How you doing? How you been? Thank you so much for all the support. Glad to have you in Mesa. Good to see you. That's a long 65. Jesus Christ. That's so long. Unstoppable Slasher. 2 and a black for a 2/3 zombie assassin with Death Touch. Whenever Unstoppable Slasher deals combat damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up. And when Unstoppable Slasher dies, if it had no counters on it, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with 2 stun counters on it. I think I like this card. It's a 3-mana creature that is annoying to block. It's annoying when it's on defense. And if it hits you, it hits like a truck. And if they kill it, you get it back. It also happens to be a zombie. If you want to play zombies deck, then this can kind of like line up with those. I'm closer onto the side of liking this than not liking it, but I do think that it is a little niche in where it shows up. You would have to be like a pretty annoying Black X mid-range deck in order to be playing this card, I think. Yeah, it's really bad into red, but I think into other cards, I mean, it's not even that bad into red because it just comes back. Black Mold, no, I have thoughts on that deck, but yeah, I don't think this card is showing up there.
Eggs, EGGS eggs.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Jerebinger back for the 36th month. How you doing? 3 years strong and still not finished. Happy anniversary to us, babe. We did it, babe. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you're doing well. Glad to have you. Good to see you. Valgavoth's Faithful. 1 black for a 1/1 human cleric. Pay 4. Sacrifice. Return target creature card from your graveyard to play. Activate only as a sorcery. We have a couple of these cards. Usually they're at 2 mana. Bone Collar Cleric is the one that I'm thinking about, which is a 2 mana 2/1. You really don't care about the body on this card. In my opinion, this is just a better version of Bone Collar Cleric. Like, the fact that you could just pay this as 5 mana Reanimate, not the end of the world compared to like 6 mana Reanimate. It's being such a cheap creature too makes it easy to like weave in with your other cards. And then yes, as Clockwork Menagerie points out, I'm going to be playing this in Shirei. Cute little card, kind of a, I don't want to say it's strictly better because obviously Bone Collar Cleric having 2 power can make it more of a threat until you have something to reanimate. Same with like Priest of Fell Rites. But this just being like, if you have 5 mana to reanimate a creature that will probably win you the game, then you should do that. And it's easier to have 5 mana than 6 mana. Thank you. Thank you so much. See, this is why you come here, for the gripping analysis and card evaluation for Magic the Gathering. PC edition. Speaking of Magic the Gathering, I mispronounced this card's name, I think, 2 different ways. It's Vaglavoth. Definitely not Valvagoth. Wait, are you sure? Did I get Berenstain Bears? It's Valgavoth. Great. Valgavoth. Valgavoth. Terror Etor. I'm saying it right. Valgavoth. I said it properly like 3 times. What do you mean? No, okay. I will admit I called it Valvagoth. All right. And I may have, my search history may have Velma Goth in it right now, but that's not here nor there. Valgavoth. Terror Etor. 6 black for a 9/9 legendary elder demon with flying, lifelink, jinkies, and ward. Sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. If a card you didn't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you exile it instead. And during your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Okay. We have received for the first time in a hot minute an actual factual incredible reanimation target. This is an incredible reanimation target. 9/9 lifelink flyer, kills them in 3 hits or likely 2 hits after fetches and some chip damage or a shockland or whatever. Ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents, busted. That's so gross. You have to wrath the board. Since Atraxa, yeah, that's like a year ago. When did Atraxa come out? Like 2 years ago or like 18 months ago? So, a long time. If a card you didn't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Great. That's just like a nice little ditty of, hey, not only am I a gigantic moth demon that is going to kill you in 2 hits, I am also going to just like Leyline of the Void you, which is pretty funny. Which makes me want to play this in A+ black combo. The like mono black 2-card combo, kind of like a 2-card Monty sort of style deck for people that need to take ibuprofen in the morning, where you just have all these 2-card combos, a bunch of tutors, and you can just play some other generic black value, which often includes reanimation cards. So being able to like have this as a reanimation card, and even if it gets stuck behind like an ensnaring bridge or just chump block to oblivion, being able to like have this card and then draw your Helm of Obedience and combo kill them is pretty funny. Then the last line of text is just wholly unnecessary. During your turn, you can play cards exiled with Valgavoth, and if you cast a spell this way, you pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana. You just get to cast free cards. Kind of wild. Yeah, this card is absurdly powerful. Big fan of this card. I recommend, if you are a Reanimator player, I recommend picking up a copy. 100%. I guess we could talk about this card. I don't think it's particularly exciting. Withering Torment, 2 and a black for an instant. Destroy target creature or enchantment. You lose 2 life. There are a lot of people saying that this is a color pie break. I don't believe it is. They have switched to allowing black to kill enchantments at a heavy cost. I think that's okay. I think there is a bit of a difference between finding yourself in a spot where you can't deal with a certain card type or whatever because of your personal colors limitations, and stuff like that enchantment that gets around hexproof and ward and whatever clunky mess. Like, I don't think this is a playable Magic card for what it's worth outside of like Commander. But I think this is fine. Like, yeah, it's okay. It is a little awkward where you're just like, oh, cool. I lost the matchup lottery and my mono black deck just cannot do a damn thing even after going to the sideboard against your enchantment deck. And therefore we just don't get to interact properly and it's boring Magic the Gathering. So I'm okay having more of this kind of thing, especially, but at a cost, right? It can't do it as efficiently as other cards. But yeah. And then finally, the special guests for black. We've been waiting for this card for so long in Gladiator. Damn nation. The noise I made when I saw this in the God book, I'm like, oh, ooh. I am just so stoked. 2 black sorcery, destroy all creatures. They cannot be regenerated. Ooh, love it. Yeah, going to be a staple in Gladiator. I mean, obviously it's a staple in Gladiator. It's Damnation. Incredible reprint to put onto Arena. Very excited to play with this card. And then last but not least is Sacrifice. I believe this is the first printing of this card since like 4th edition. 1 black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you sacrifice a creature. And then you add an amount of black equal to the sacrifice creature's mana value. What's the pentagon symbol mean? It means that they're a fed. This card is kind of cracked in half, and I'm interested to see on how I can combo with this in Gladiator, because this is a shitload of mana. Like, this is a shitload of mana. This lets you do some gross tin fins kind of things, combo kills, like wild. I don't know if we have the density to really take advantage of this the same way that we do in Canlander, where you get access to Burnt Offering as well, which is effectively the same card, but can also add red. But it's enough to, like, just seeing this card and be like, holy shit, they reprinted Sacrifice. Is enough to make me interested in seeing what we can do with this card in Gladiator. On that note, I'm going to have to call the stream there. It's like I said, very short stream, but don't worry, I'm streaming every day this week. So there will be more stream, more set review, more discussion with this. Before I go, there is a very important thing that I should share that is going to be relevant to all of your interests. Every single one of you. You know what? I could say this, or I could be a very professional, good streamer and just do this. It's the Duskmourn House of Horror pre-PR this Friday. Friday the 13th. Ah! Sorry, I got scared by Friday the 13th. I should have really myself when I screamed there. Over at twitch.tv or youtube.com/loadingreadyrun. 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're playing with Duskmourn. We got some pre-recorded stuff. We got some gameplays. And we have a guest. Would you believe that? We actually have a guest. We have writer of the Duskmourn fiction and fantasy author Shannon McGuire is going to be here. So you will want to tune in. You are definitely going to want to tune in because my deck is... I'm not going to tell you. But oh my, it is so funny. It is so funny. And it is so if you know how I feel about the general vibe of this set, it is so fitting. It is so it feels almost cosmic in in like how everything aligned. So tune into that on Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right. I'm going to call it there. I'm going to be streaming again tomorrow. How is it funny? Like what kind of funny? How is my deck funny to you? What is it, a joke to you? Yeah, tune into that. I'm going to be streaming again tomorrow. I'm going to be doing more of the set review as well as maybe some Vintage Cube, because I'm going to be able to stream for basically the entire day. Like I'm going to do a big stream because I wasn't able to stream a lot last week. And obviously this stream is shorter because of pre-release setup. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Let me drop you kids off somewhere. And if you missed a portion of this, the VOD is going to be up on YouTube later today. Going to try to turbo out a bunch of VODs that I may have missed. In the meantime, from one redhead that swears a lot and is very loud to another, you can go watch Foxy play Magic the Gathering. What is this? Amonkhet draft? Holy shit. Okay. Go watch Foxy and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.